The sun was blazing above California, its rays bouncing off the rows of polished cars lined up outside Benson Motors like diamonds under a spotlight. The dealership was a kingdom of chrome and gloss where success was flaunted and judgment came swiftly, often before a word was spoken. Inside the glass showroom the air was chilled, scented faintly of leather and espresso. Salespeople moved with the confidence of men who believed they owned the world, laughing in tailored suits, holding cups of artisanal coffee, eyes constantly flicking to the front entrance, hunting for their next high-ticket client. They didn't expect who walked through the door. He stepped in quietly, like someone used to being overlooked but never shaken by it. A tall black man, well-built, carrying himself with a calm energy that seemed to silence the room without trying. He wore no suit, no luxury watch, no designer shoes, just a plain polo, dark jeans, and worn sneakers. His hands were tucked loosely in his pockets. His expression was composed, his eyes scanning the floor like a man with a purpose no one else could see. He walked past a silver Bentley, the sun's reflection dancing off the hood, and paused at a cherry-red Porsche. The vehicle gleamed under the overhead lights, its curves hypnotic, its power evident without needing to roar. The man ran a slow hand along the fender, not with awe, but with appreciation, like someone who understood value, not by price tags, but by presence. From across the showroom, Rick Simmons watched him. Rick was the dealership's general manager, a man who believed he could size up a customer with a glance and prided himself on not wasting his time. 8 years in this job had turned him into a walking assumption. He noticed everything except what mattered, and what he saw now didn't impress him. Jeans, polo, no visible signs of wealth, no assistant trailing behind, no hint of importance. To Rick, this man was just another browser, another looker who'd never sign on the dotted line. He didn't smile, he didn't welcome. Instead, Rick walked straight toward him, shoulders squared, every step shouting authority. He stopped directly in the man's path, arms crossed, lips pursed in a tight line. The room behind them continued buzzing, but something shifted, like a tension coil slowly winding tighter. "Sir, can I help you?" Rick's voice was firm, clipped, not rude, not kind, just a tone that said, "You don't belong here." The man turned his head slightly, offering a polite smile, just looking around. Rick didn't return the smile. His tone changed instantly, laced with dismissal. "Well, this dealership isn't open for browsing. These vehicles are priced for serious buyers. If you're just here to take pictures or kill time, there's a used lot down the street that might be more your speed." The man raised an eyebrow, but his posture didn't shift. Calm, steady. Like he'd heard this before. Like he knew how people like Rick operated. A few employees nearby paused. A young intern looked uncomfortable. A female assistant manager opened her mouth, then quickly looked away. No one intervened. This wasn't the first time Rick had made such a judgment. It likely wouldn't be the last. The black man looked at Rick for a long second. His voice remained even, never rising. "You assume I can't afford this?" Rick chuckled softly, a sound filled with condescension. "I'm just being real with you, man. Let's not waste each other's time." The man tilted his head, not angry, just disappointed. He slowly placed both hands back into his pockets and gave a small nod. "All right, I understand." Then he turned and walked out. No scene, no drama, no raised voices, just a quiet retreat that left a louder echo than any argument. Rick watched him go with a strange satisfaction. In his mind, he had done his job, protected the brand, kept the space professional. He exhaled sharply, turning to the other employees as if waiting for silent approval. No one said a word. But the air was heavy with something else now, a weight that settled across the floor, one no amount of perfume or marble tiles could cover. Outside, the man walked back toward his car, a modest black sedan parked away from the luxury line. As he opened the driver's door, he glanced once over his shoulder, eyes scanning the dealership one last time. He wasn't angry. He was calculating. Rick, back inside, continued on with his day as if nothing had happened. He had a meeting with an influencer at noon. A couple from Beverly Hills coming in to test drive the latest model. There was no time to waste energy on someone who didn't fit the profile. But Rick didn't realize the profile was changing. He didn't know the ink had already dried. He didn't know the paperwork had been filed days before. He didn't know that the man he dismissed had already become the new owner of Benson Motors. And his one misjudgment wasn't just a mistake. It was the moment his entire world would begin to shift. Outside, the man drove off slowly. He didn't need to race. He didn't need to prove anything. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply watches and waits, because real power doesn't demand recognition. It commands it when the time is right. And for Marcus Bradley, that time was coming faster than Rick Simmons could ever imagine. That night, Rick sat in his office, sipping from the same branded coffee mug he used every day. He stared at quarterly charts and budget goals, thinking only about sales numbers. Not people, not fairness, not change, just numbers. But change was already walking through the front door. And this time, it wore quiet confidence, not a suit. Not all storms make noise when they roll in. Some arrive as whispers, and before anyone realizes it, the foundation is already trembling. What Rick didn't see when he turned that man away was that he hadn't just insulted a customer, he insulted the future. A future that came not to punish but to teach. And when the lesson arrived, Rick would have no choice but to face the cost of his assumptions. Because sometimes, the man you underestimate today is the man signing your paycheck tomorrow. And nothing exposes a person's character faster than how they treat someone they believe has nothing to offer them. Marcus Bradley wasn't looking for a car that day. He was looking for honesty, and what he found was exactly what needed to be changed. The morning after was not like any other. There was a tension in the air at Benson Motors, a subtle buzz vibrating through the showroom, down the hallways, and across the back offices. Something felt off. Whispers passed between salesmen like static, people checking their phones, rereading vague emails from upper management. Nobody could confirm it, but everyone felt it. The rumor was simple, but too outrageous to believe. Someone had bought the dealership. Not just invested in it, bought it. Entirely, and none of the employees had been informed until today. Rick Simmons, the manager, tried to push the noise aside. He'd been in this game long enough to know that rumors meant nothing without signatures. He'd been here 8 years, kept the showroom pristine, hit sales quotas year after year, rolled out the red carpet for the wealthy, the powerful, the prestigious. Benson Motors wasn't just a job, it was his kingdom. And if someone was really bold enough to take the reins, he figured they'd have to go through him first. Still, he found himself adjusting his tie more than once that morning, polishing his shoes again, checking his reflection in the mirror. And when he noticed his hand trembling while holding his coffee, he told himself it was the caffeine. The minutes dragged on. Every employee seemed to be half working, half waiting. The front desk assistant glanced nervously toward the entrance every 30 seconds. 2 salesmen loitered near the break room, but didn't talk. The atmosphere had shifted. It no longer belonged to them. At exactly 9 o'clock, the sound of the showroom doors swinging open jolted the room like a thunderclap. He walked in. The man from yesterday, except now he looked different. Gone were the jeans and polo. In their place, a charcoal blazer tailored to perfection, crisp white shirt, dark slacks. But his demeanor hadn't changed. Still calm, still composed, still quiet. He walked with purpose, flanked by 2 individuals. One, a woman holding a slim portfolio, the other, a lawyer in a navy suit with a briefcase in hand. They stepped across the showroom floor slowly, deliberately. Every eye in the building was now fixed on them. You could hear the intake of breath, the click of one man's pen dropping on the floor. No one moved. Rick froze. His face drained of color. He tried to speak. What are you doing here?" The man didn't answer him, not at first. He walked directly past Rick, not stopping, not slowing, as though the man didn't even register anymore. Then he turned and addressed the staff, his voice echoing with control and unmistakable authority. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcus Bradley. As of this morning, I am the new owner of Benson Motors." The silence shattered. Gasps flew across the room like sparks. Someone dropped their tablet. Another whispered, "No way," but no one said it out loud. Rick's mouth opened, but no words came. Marcus stood calmly in the center of the floor, his hands resting in front of him. The lawyer handed a document to the front desk assistant. The woman beside him nodded. No dramatics, just truth. Marcus's eyes scanned the room slowly. "I stopped by here yesterday," he said. "Unannounced, quiet, no appointment, no entourage. I wore what I normally wear on a day off. I wanted to see how people are treated when no one thinks they're important, how people are judged, how assumptions are made." Everyone turned to Rick. No one said his name, but everyone knew what this was about. Marcus continued, still calm, but now his voice sharpened. Not with anger, but clarity. "I was profiled, disrespected, and told I didn't belong here, based solely on my appearance." Rick finally found his voice, but it cracked as it left his throat. I didn't know." Marcus turned to him directly. His eyes were sharp, measured. "That's the point," he said, his voice like steel. "You didn't ask. You assumed." Rick's lips quivered. "I was just doing my job." "No," Marcus interrupted, calm but final. "You were protecting your comfort. You weren't protecting this business. You were protecting an illusion that only a certain kind of person belongs here." He turned back to the staff. "I didn't buy this dealership to make money. I already have money. I bought it because I believe success should never come at the cost of dignity, and because I believe that every person deserves respect the moment they walk through those doors, whether they're buying or browsing, rich or poor, white or black." His voice was calm but firm. "And that's going to change, starting today." He let the silence hang. Rick stood frozen, still unsure whether to speak or to sink through the floor. Marcus nodded to his assistant, who handed out folders to several employees. "Every staff member will go through retraining. Not just sales techniques, but respect, equity, and human decency. This is no longer just a dealership. This is a place where values will match the value of the vehicles we sell." A few employees clapped, softly at first, then more joined in. Even those who didn't know what to do felt the need to break the tension with support, but Rick didn't move. He couldn't. His entire body felt like it had turned to stone. He wasn't just embarrassed, he was exposed. Everything he believed made him strong. His ability to judge people, his instinct to protect the brand, had just been revealed for what it was: bias, blindness, pride. Marcus walked past him again, slowly. Rick turned, desperate. "Please, I didn't mean anything by it." Marcus paused beside him. He looked at Rick, not with hatred, not even disappointment, but with a deep, almost sorrowful calm. "That's the problem," he said. "You didn't mean to hurt anyone, but you did, because you never stopped to see them." Then he walked away. Rick stood alone in the center of the showroom. The place that once felt like his stage now felt like a courtroom, and the verdict had already been handed down. He could feel the judgment now, not from Marcus, but from himself. The employees began to return to their work, buzzing again, but now with a different energy, hopeful, nervous, awakened. They hadn't just gotten a new owner. The sunlight had shifted by the time Rick Simmons was called into the office. It poured through the large windows, casting long shadows across the tile floor of a room that used to belong to someone else. Once, Rick had walked these hallways with a sense of control. He knew every light switch, every leather-bound folder, every corner of this dealership. But now, it felt unfamiliar, like walking into someone else's house, wearing the wrong clothes. The nameplate on the office door had changed. It didn't say Mr. Benson anymore, and it certainly didn't say Rick Simmons. It said Marcus Bradley, and those two words weighed heavier than anything Rick had carried before. He paused at the threshold, hesitant, then knocked softly. "Come in," came the voice from inside, calm, composed, clear. Rick stepped in. The air inside was cool, but he felt sweat forming at the back of his neck. His face was pale, his mouth dry. He hadn't been able to concentrate all day. Every interaction he had since the morning announcement had felt hollow. His authority, once absolute, had shriveled under the weight of realization. Marcus sat behind the desk, arms resting calmly, posture straight. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't angry. He looked thoughtful, measured. powerful in a way that didn't need volume. Rick cleared his throat. "Mr. Bradley, I just want to say, I'm sorry." He paused, searching Marcus's face for some kind of reaction. "I was wrong. What I didn't mean any harm." Marcus leaned back slowly in his chair. He looked at Rick, not with contempt, but with a level gaze that seemed to see straight through the apology. "You didn't mean harm," he said softly, "but you caused it." Rick lowered his head. Marcus continued. "You looked at me and decided I wasn't worth your time. You didn't ask my name. You didn't ask what I needed. You assumed." Rick's voice cracked. "I know, I messed up, but I've been here for years. I've put my life into this place. Please." Marcus didn't flinch. "How many others have you done that to?" The question landed like a punch. Rick looked up slowly, eyes filled with guilt, but he couldn't answer because deep down he knew the truth. Marcus wasn't the first person he'd judged by appearance. He was just the first person with the power to expose it. Marcus stood and walked toward the window. He looked out over the showroom floor, where employees were still adjusting to the new reality, some with curiosity, some with unease, others with hope. "I came in as a test," he said, voice low. "I wanted to see how people were treated when no one thought they were important. I wanted to see the culture, the instincts, the habits that no one talks about in meetings." He turned back to Rick. "And you failed that test?" Rick's hands trembled slightly. "I was trying to protect the brand. I thought I was helping." "You were protecting your bias," Marcus replied firmly, "and that's what needs to change." He walked back to the desk and sat down. "I'm not here to ruin lives," Marcus said. "I didn't buy this place to take revenge. I bought it to fix what's broken. That includes people." Rick's eyes flicked up. There was a flicker of hope. Maybe he wouldn't be fired. Maybe there was still a chance. "But you won't stay in your current role," Marcus continued. "You're stepping down as manager, effective immediately." Rick's breath caught. "Step down?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, and you'll enter a retraining program. You'll be supervised, coached. You'll report to someone you used to outrank. You'll learn what it means to lead without judgment." Rick sat in stunned silence. The desk, the title, the respect, it was all slipping away. But he also knew he deserved it. "You'll work under the people you once looked down on," Marcus said with a firm but even tone. "You'll listen, you'll learn, and maybe you'll earn your place back." There was a long, heavy pause. The silence wasn't punishment, it was reflection. It was truth laying itself bare. Rick finally nodded slowly. I'll do it." Marcus didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He simply stood and extended his hand. "Then let's start over." Rick stood too, hesitant at first, then reached out. Their hands met. It wasn't a handshake of victory. It was a handshake of accountability. And as their palms connected, Rick felt something shift inside. It wasn't just the weight of humiliation or regret. It was the beginning of something unfamiliar. Growth. For years, he had built his identity around control, around knowing who was worth his time and who wasn't. But now he saw how narrow that vision had been, how many people he had dismissed simply because they didn't fit his image of a buyer or a leader or a success story. Now he stood face to face with someone who had shattered that image, not with anger, not with rage, but with dignity. Marcus wasn't asking for apologies. He was demanding change. As Rick left the office, the dealership looked different. The walls were the same, the cars still gleamed, but the energy had shifted. There was something alive now in the air, something that had been missing: awareness. He passed employees who had seen the morning unfold. Some looked at him with uncertainty, others with silent judgment. But no one said a word. He wasn't the boss anymore. But maybe that was exactly what he needed. In the weeks that followed, Rick began his training. He shadowed junior salespeople. He took diversity and sensitivity courses. He sat in rooms where his voice wasn't the loudest anymore. He listened, he reflected, and he began to see people, not just clients, not just quotas, but people. There were moments when it stung. When a younger staff member corrected him, when a customer he once would have dismissed came in and bought 2 high-end vehicles without hesitation. when he overheard a whisper in the break room, a joke at his expense. But he didn't argue. He didn't deflect. He took it in. Because for the first time, Rick understood that real respect isn't given with a title. It's earned through humility. Marcus, meanwhile, didn't hover. He checked in occasionally but allowed the process to unfold. He wasn't interested in micromanaging. He was interested in transformation. He made changes across the dealership, hired more diverse staff, updated policies, created an environment where every person, whether a millionaire or a window shopper, was greeted with the same energy. Welcome, not suspicion. Under Marcus's leadership, Benson Motors didn't just thrive, it evolved. Sales improved. Customer satisfaction rose. Employees began to talk about their workplace with pride. The dealership became a story across town, not just because of the cars, but because of what it represented. Redemption. One day, months later, Rick stood near the entrance as a young black man walked in, hoodie, jeans, no visible wealth. A few years ago, Rick would have stopped him, questioned him, asked if he needed directions. But this time he smiled. "Welcome to Benson Motors," Rick said. "Let me know if I can help you." The young man nodded, surprised at the warmth. He walked in without hesitation, his eyes scanning the showroom. Rick didn't chase him away. He watched him with respect. He had learned the hard way that dignity isn't a luxury, it's a right. And it should never be conditional. Later that day, Marcus walked past Rick in the showroom. They nodded at each other silently. There was no need for words. Because both men understood what had happened here. Not just a sale, not just a buyout, but a revolution. It hadn't come with shouting. It had come with silence, with truth, and with consequences. The kind that echo, that teach, that transform. The kind that don't just change policies, they change people. Rick Simmons had once been the face of power in that dealership, but it was Marcus Bradley who showed him what true leadership looks like. Not dominance, but dignity. Not fear, but fairness. Not assumptions, but awareness. And Benson Motors was never the same again. Not because of who bought it, but because of how he chose to lead it, and how he turned judgment into justice, and power into purpose, forever. Ask ChatGPT. If you liked this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with others so they can learn something from it too.